All right, tonight we are in chapter 7 and in verse 1. And again, we're going to get through the chapter, and so we're going to have to go very rapidly, but as we did last week, we saw that if we don't get through it all, why, we really missed the point. So we need to go again tonight very rapidly. So now, last week we started out with this, and I'm going to be talking here for just a minute about, to get our mind prepared for what we're going to be talking about, that we learned that between chapters 5 and 6, there was a great deal of material that, a great deal of material and great deal of places where Jesus went, and we would have to go to those passages to find them. So we took a look there at between the second and third Passover. We saw that you would need to go to all those passages of Scripture and take a look at it in there to see what he was doing, because there was really a 1-year Galilean ministry. So as you look here in your Gospel of John, you see between those two chapters, in John, you don't see anything. But still, when you go to the Synoptics, there was a great deal of things. Now then, tonight, let's take a look at what happened between chapter 6 and 7. Again, there was a great deal of things. There was a 6-month period in here that he was in Galilee between these two chapters in here, and you can read about him in Mark chapter 7 through 9. Now, I just point these out because it's not necessary for us to even refer to them, but to let you know that as we study the Gospel of John, that it's different than the Synoptics, and the Gospel of John is dealing with what Jesus did down in Jerusalem. So now then, let's set the stage for what he's doing here tonight so we can see where he is. As we go back to those feast day charts, we find that you have a 1 year between those two first Passovers, then you have another year, and then you have a third year that takes you down to the Passover to where Jesus is going to die. Now, tonight we're going to be looking there at the Feast of Tabernacles, and the Feast of Tabernacles comes in the month of October. And as you look over where Jesus is going to die, that's the next Passover, and the Passover comes in April. So all that I'm pointing out is where we are dealing with tonight in chapter 7 until Jesus dies is a period of 6 months. So that's what the rest of this book is going to be dealing with then, is going to be these last 6 months of Jesus' life. Now, the thing that I want to impress upon you tonight is this, and that is that even though in the book of John we haven't studied about a whole lot of those things that Jesus did. Last week we went through a chart and said he did this, and on down the line. But as you're studying the book of John, you can get the idea that Jesus, at this point in his life, hasn't done too much. So I just want to call your attention. Yeah, he has now been busy for 2 years and 6 months. He has accomplished all of this great thing. He has now set himself up to where he has become an enemy of the Jews. So now then tonight, as we look at it, we're going to take that part away. Then we're going to take the other part of the chart away. And we're going to take a look now in here at what we're going to be dealing with in chapter 7. Now there's a 6-month period of time between the Passover and that. And here we find in chapter 1 is where it deals with this thing. And after these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Judea because the Jews sought to kill him. So now, he's going to Galilee, and there's a 6-month period of time that is in there. But now, the very next verse, we're going to see that he's headed down to Jerusalem. So now, as he goes down to Jerusalem, he's going down to what is called the Feast of the Tabernacles. The Feast of the Tabernacles was a 7-day feast. It was a feast of where all the Jews moved out of their homes and went out and lived in what we would call tents. They called them booths in the Bible. You'd go out and they would cut down limbs and put limbs up, and they would build them little shacks like you would do if you were going out in the woods and going to spend a week out there for hunting, and that was called a booth. Now, this was to remind them of the 40 years that they roamed in the wilderness, and they lived in these temporary structures that they had. So now, he's going down in October to deal with it at this time. So that's what chapter 7 now is going to be about. Now, a couple of things I want to point out that we need to know to make this trip a little bit more interesting. And that is, he's up at Capernaum, and he's heading down now to Jerusalem. All right, now, first of all, there's going to be a great group of people that will be going down to Jerusalem. Now, his brothers went on down with the normal crowd. There would be a great crowd of people that went down over on that side of the Jordan River. You remember why they would go over on that side of the Jordan River? Because of the Samaritans. But now what Jesus is going to do is he's going to go down through Samaria. He's going to head down there with his disciples, and he'll go through there. Now you could look over in Luke chapter 9, verse 51, to look at this trip. When he gets down there, that's the time of when he was stopped, and they wouldn't let him go through. They didn't want him to go because he was headed toward Jerusalem. You remember I told you way back at the very beginning that if you headed toward Jerusalem, the Samaritans wouldn't let you go through. But if you're going home from Jerusalem, then you could go through Samaria and they wouldn't stop you. So they stopped him here, and that is where James and John looked around to the Lord and wanted to know, do you want us to call lightning out of heaven and just kill all these people? And so they were called the sons of thunder. Well, that happened right here at this period. So Jesus quieted them down, then he went ahead and he made his way down to Jerusalem. So he's down there now for this particular feast, 6 months before he dies, that's in there. Now there's another thing that we're going to run across in this chapter, and I'll give it to you right now so that when we get there we'll just and go on past it. And that is, the Jews had a way of telling when the Christ came. Now they had lots of ways of telling when the Christ came. In other words, they had the genealogy of the Christ. They had the place where he was born. They had all of those prophecies about his life. They had all of those things. But here's another thing that they had, and that is there hadn't been any miracles in Israel for hundreds of years. But the Jews knew when the Christ comes, he is going to perform these miracles. So stop and think here that we look at it and we cover hundreds of years, and we don't realize that there were hundreds of years in the Jewish history where there was no miracles. You got to go clear back to Elijah and Elisha, and they were performing lots of miracles. But for all these hundreds of years now, there has been no miracles. But if you go to Isaiah 35, verses 5 and 6, Isaiah says that when he comes, he's going to heal the sick and give sight to the blind and dit. He's going to perform these miracles. Now, in Matthew chapter 11, verse 21, you remember when John the Baptist was in prison and he sent and asked Jesus, are you really the one, or should we look for another? In other words, are you the one? And the way Jesus answered him was, he said, you go back and tell John that the sick are healed, the blind receive their sight, and he goes ahead and he quotes Isaiah 35. You go back and tell him that I'm the man that is doing all of these miracles, and that will satisfy John. John then will know, okay, he is the Christ. Now, there's going to be a statement that's going to be made in this chapter that unless we understand that, then that statement really won't really matter to us there. So now then, like we did last week, we cut off our sights up here, so you can go ahead and you can turn that off over there. And we're going to go to the text and just deal with the text then and go through it here tonight very rapidly. Now, he says, and after these things Jesus walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Judea because the Jews sought to kill him. So now, when he left Jerusalem the last time, why the Jews, now this are the Sanhedrin, the leaders, they have gotten so angry with Jesus that they have determined that they're going to kill him. It said, now the feast of the Jews, the Feast of Tabernacles, was at hand. So now we're going to see what he does. His brothers therefore came unto him, said unto him, depart hence and go up to Judea, for thy disciples also may behold thy works which thou doest. For no man doeth anything in secret, and himself seeketh to be known openly. If thou doest these things, manifest thyself unto the world. For even his brethren did not believe on him. This is interesting. The brothers of Jesus Christ did not believe he was the Messiah until after the resurrection. The first time that you find them believing in him is in Acts, the 1st chapter, after he was raised from the dead. But at this time, they didn't believe in him. There must have been quite a disruption in that family with him now making all of this commotion and teaching all these things, and yet his brothers didn't believe in him. So now they're egging him on. They are challenging him. They are making fun of him. They said, now, here's the Feast of the Tabernacle. Well, go on up to Jerusalem. Go on up there and do all of your miracles. Because if you are the Christ, you're just like any other politician, is what they're saying. When somebody is claiming to be someone great, they want to go where the crowd is. They want to go where people can hear them. It's kind of like our politicians today, in the campaign that they're in. So they say, go up to Jerusalem where you can get all of this attention. So they're pushing him, egging him on because they don't believe in him. Now then, verse 6, Jesus therefore saith unto him, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. Now Jesus talks about his time on various occasions. His time that he's talking about is the time of his death, the time of when they're going to grab him and they're going to put him to death. So now, my time is not yet ready, but you can go up at any time that you want to. He said, the world cannot hate you, but it hateth me. But me it hateth, because I testify of it, that its works are evil. So he said, you guys can go on. I'm not going to go up there. Go ye up unto the feast. I go not up unto the feast, because my time is not yet fulfilled. But having said these things unto him, he abode still in Galilee. Now, does any of your translations that you've got here, does it say yet in there? I go not up to the feast yet. See? Now, in the manuscripts, there's wait goes back and forth, and many manuscripts has the word yet in it. Some of the manuscripts do not have the word yet in it. My manuscript, or my translation that was taken for them, it was taken from some that didn't have it in there. The King James and others have it in there. Now, I think that it should be in there because what Jesus is saying is, he's not saying, I'm not going up to the feast, but I'm not going up to the feast yet. See, I'm not taking off at this particular time that's there. So he's not letting them know that he's going to go with them. But when his brethren were going up unto the feast, then went he also up, not publicly, but as it were in secret. Now later, you'll find it's almost the middle of the Passover when he's going to he's going to make his appearance and cause this disruption that's in there. So he went up secretly then, without all of the crowd that's around him. The Jews therefore sought him at the feast and said, where is he? So he's not there. So for the first 3 days, while the Jews are running around, where is that man? Where is the man who was down here 6 months ago and causing all this ruckus? Where is he? We want to see him. And so it was a great political thing that they were after that was in there. And so it says, and some sought him there, and then verse 12, and there was much murmuring among the multitudes concerning him. Some says, he's a good man. Others said, not so, but he leadeth the multitude astray. Yet no man spake openly of him for fear of the Jews. Now, among the common Jews that are down there in Jerusalem, everybody is talking about him. Everybody's talking. He hadn't shown up yet. Where is he? We want to see him. Some people are saying he's no good. Others saying, yeah, I think he's good. But the one thing that none of them were committed to is that none of them would speak out openly in this because they were afraid of the Sanhedrin. They were afraid of the Jews. If the Jews thought that they were on the side of Christ, they might get in a lot of political trouble and even be put to death themselves. So they now are holding back. So keep this in mind as you draw your picture. Down in Jerusalem, thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of Jews are down there. They're all murmuring about this fella that caused all of this commotion 6 months ago by making these claims that he made. And the Sanhedrin is trying to get something on him where they can put him to death in here. And they're all murmuring now about it. 14. But when it was now the midst of the feast, so you see down in the middle of it, about 3 days after the feast had started, that's in there, Jesus went up unto the temple and taught. So all of a sudden, Jesus went up and showed up in the temple and began to teach. This will be interesting because he shows up just at the right time. He's not giving them enough time to be able to put their political agenda together, grab him, and kill him. All of a sudden he shows up, and the Sanhedrin now is caught unprepared. They're having to make their plans to catch him, to kill him, but they don't have enough time to do it. So he's going to escape from this particular situation that's right here. So he showed up just at the right time. So in about 3 more days, he'll be able to escape away from them. Now, Jesus went into the group up at the temple, and he said in there, the Jews therefore marveled, saying, how knoweth this man letters? Saying, how knoweth this man letters, having never learned? So he's not a learned man, he's not an educated man. How does he know all of these things? Jesus therefore answered them and said, my teaching is not mine. I'm going to show you how I know these things. My teaching is not mine, but his that sent me. I've been sent by a certain individual, and he's the one that has sent me, and he's the one that's told me what to teach. So don't worry about whether I'm educated or not, because I'm not getting my material out of some university, out of some school. One has sent me, and he's the one telling me what to say. He said then, if any man willeth to do his will, he shall know of the teaching, whether it is of God or whether I speak from myself. So now if any of you really are honest and you want to know the will of God, you can know the will of God. You can know whether what I'm saying is God's will or what I'm saying is just man's will. You'll be able to understand that. Now he goes on down and says again in this way. He said, he that speaketh from himself seeketh his own glory. But he that seeketh the glory of him that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. So now here's the first thing. First way that you can tell where I'm from. When a man is seeking his own glory, you know he's not from God. If a man is from God, then he is going to give all the glory to God. Now he said that's the first way that you can tell whether it's there. So he doesn't seek his own. He seeketh the one that sent him. And then no unrighteousness is in him. Now here's another way that you can tell. You'll be able to look at the man, and there won't be any unrighteousness in him. He will be doing what is pleasing to God. You can examine his life, and you can see whether he's living the way God would have him to live. There's 2 ways, he says, that you can tell whether I am from God or not. Then he says, did not Moses give you the law, and yet none of you doeth the law? Why seek you to kill me? So he looked at him, he said, now Moses has given you the law, all of you are proud of the law, and yet you're going contrary to the law, and you're trying to kill me. You're trying to kill a man without a trial, trying to kill a man that hadn't been proven guilty. You're trying to kill a man that you can't even find any unrighteousness in. Now that is your situation. Jesus is getting ready to really draw some hard lines here in chapter 7. Then Jesus answered in here, let's see, right here. I don't want to go any farther until I give you some other material right there. Up here, when I pointed out, if you want to know the will of, if it's the will of God, you can find out. I said we're going to run across it again. I don't think we are. If you want to know, now, how many ways did those Jews have of checking to see if Jesus was the Son of God? He said, if you have the will to do the will of God, you can tell what I'm saying. Number one, you can tell by whether I try to claim the glory. Number two, you can tell by my life whether there's any unrighteousness in me. If they're really interested, they could go back to John the Baptist and the baptism, and who gave testimony there? You remember? God gave testimony, and you could get that testimony you got from John. John himself has given you testimony. You can go back to Moses, and Moses gives you testimony. You can check it all out. You can check my teaching. Is my teaching in harmony with the teaching of Moses? You can check my life. Now, if anybody is really interested to know the will of God, you can know whether I'm telling you the truth or not. See, is what he's saying. Now then, he's going to accuse them of having the wrong kind of a heart. He said, now, you people are the kind of people that Moses said, don't kill, and yet you're trying to kill me. Then verse 21, Jesus answered and said unto them, I did one work, and ye all marvel because thereof. Now, Jesus has done 100 miracles, maybe 1,000, I have no idea. Jesus has done all kinds of miracles. But put yourself in the historical situation that I've been putting up here on the board. As you go back, you find, where did Jesus do all of those miracles? Where did he walk on water? Where did he feed the 5,000? Where did he raise the dead? Where was he? Was it down in Jerusalem, or was it up in Galilee? It was up in Galilee. That's where he did all those miracles. Now, we followed him down at Jerusalem in our last chapter. And when he was down in Jerusalem, what miracle did he do? What one miracle did he do that provoked all of that animosity and argument? You remember when he healed the man at the pool of Bethsaida? So Jesus is telling them, I came down here and I did one work. I healed that one man. And as a result of healing that one man, all of these things have come to pass. See, that's what he means there. He's not talking about the hundreds of things that he would have done up in Galilee. Then he says, in verse 22, Moses hath given you circumcision, not that it is of Moses, but of the fathers. And on the Sabbath you circumcise a man. Now, Moses gave you circumcision. Well, Moses didn't give it, but the fathers did. Let me ask you, was circumcision in existence before Moses was ever born? Yeah. Goes clear back to the days of Abraham, doesn't it? See, way back there, hundreds of years, 400 years before Moses was ever born. God instituted circumcision among Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all the tribes. Then when Moses came, Moses put it in the law. So what he's telling these people, he said, you Jews, you have a law of circumcision. Moses put it in his law. Now, he said it was in existence long before that. The fathers had it. But now, you claim to follow Moses. Moses put it in the law. Now then, let's see why he put this there. He says, if a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath, that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you wroth or angry with me because I made a man every whit whole on the Sabbath? So he said, here's your predicament. You have a law that says you're to circumcise a boy on what day? The 8th day. Now suppose the 8th day fell on a Sabbath. What did the Jews say? Did the Jews say, well, no, we're not going to work. We're not going to circumcise this boy on the Sabbath day? No, this supersedes that. God had told them, he said, don't labor on the Sabbath day. And then he told them that on the Sabbath day, here's what you're supposed to do. And so he showed them that here's what you understand. That is, that on the Sabbath day, you do the work of circumcision. You cleanse that part of one organ on a Jewish boy. You cut that off. You cleanse that one organ. And you do that on the Sabbath day. I came along, and how much of the man did I clean? I made him whole everywhere. I came and I made a man whole. And now then, you're mad at me for doing the same thing you did, except I did this great, tremendous work on the whole man. See? And he's showing them, you Jews are inconsistent, see, in this. You're condemning me for the same thing that you do. Then verse 24, judge not according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment. So in the context of this, he said, now if you want to judge, in this case you're judging me, if you're going to judge, judge righteous judgment. Judge me the way that you judge yourself. Don't make up a new law that fits me, but it doesn't fit you. Judge righteous judgment. So that's where that comes forth of him telling them to do. Some therefore of them of Jerusalem says, is not this he whom you seek to kill? So now then, they're going to the Jews and they're saying, in this guy that you seek to kill? And lo, he speaketh openly. And they say nothing to him. So now then, these Jews are saying, wait a minute, these are the common people. Isn't this the guy that the rulers are wanting to kill? And yet he shows up right in the middle here and he speaks openly. He's speaking and he's telling us who he is. And yet they're not saying one word about him. Then he says, can it be that the rulers indeed know that this is the Christ? Could it be that the rulers know this is the Christ and that's the reason they're not trying to do anything to him? Now how do you suppose that's going to go over with the rulers? When that is said, see? Boy, that's going to cut them right to the quick. So now then, they go ahead and they say, howbeit, we know, the rulers then came back and said, howbeit, we know this man whence he is, but when the Christ cometh, no one knoweth whence he is. So I said, now, this man right here, we know him, we know where he came from. When the Christ comes, he's just going to show up and we're not going to know where he came from. This guy is not the Christ. We're told that the Jews had a man-made law, statement, proverb, that when the Christ comes, it'll be in secret. When the Christ comes, there won't be any prologue to it. It'll just bang, and he'll be there. It's what it says. That's what they're talking about when they say, we know where this guy came from. When the Christ comes, he's just going to pop on the scene. We're not going to know where he came from. Jesus therefore cried in the temple. So now the argument is getting hot. The argument's getting hot. The common Jews are starting to gouge the rulers. The rulers are coming back and making this statement to these common people. Now right in the middle of it, Jesus cried out. And he's going to cry this challenge. As you're reading this passage, don't read it with the idea that Jesus is just standing there, and they're standing there, and he is saying, I'm the one that God sent. You need to listen to me. Here's what we're going to do. That's not what went on. Jesus is there, and he cries out, right in the middle of this argument, right in the middle of where these rulers are furious. They're wanting to kill him. They didn't have the chance. He shows up again. He catches them unprepared. The Jewish people now are gouging them, and they're arguing, and right in the middle of it, Jesus cries out and provokes more argument along this line. And Jesus therefore cried in the temple, teaching and saying, you know me, and know whence I am, and I am not come of myself, but that he that sent me is true, whom you do not know. So when these people said, we know him, we know where he came from, Jesus is saying, okay, so you know where it came from in here. You know me. You understand really who I am. And I have not come from myself, but he that sent me is true, whom you do not know. You don't know God. You don't know where I came from, is really what he's saying. I know him. I know God, because I am from him, and he sent me. They sought therefore to take him, and no man laid hands on him, because his hour was not yet come. So now then, they're furious. Now then, they say, we're going to get him. But they didn't. They didn't lay their hands on him yet. They hadn't made their plans. They hadn't got the plans. Later on we'll learn. Why didn't these Jews just grab him right there? You remember why they didn't grab him too early and just kill him? They're afraid of the people. They were afraid of all the Jews that were out there that was believing in him. They're afraid they would turn on him. So they've got to make some plans. You and I know the plans they'll finally get in order in another 6 months. But right now, they don't have those plans in order. And so what he did was, he caught him. His time was not yet come. He didn't give him enough time. He showed up in the midst of the feast, in the middle of it. He only gave him 3 days, and then he's out. They couldn't put it together in that period of time that's in there. He knew when his time was, and he put it exactly where it should be in there. Now 31, but of the multitude many believed on him, and they said, when the Christ shall come, will he do more signs than those which this man hath done? You remember that chart that I told you back there? About what did the Jews believe when the Christ comes? What is a major way that we can know if he does these miracles? What was it that John asked? Are you the one? How did Jesus answer? Go tell them the miracles I'm doing. So these Jews now are saying, you know, we believe he is the Christ. Because when the Christ does come, will he do more miracles than this man? If we're going to reject him, do you think that when the Christ comes on down, then he would do more? For the Pharisees heard the multitudes murmuring these things concerning him, and the chief priest and the Pharisees sent officers to take him. So now, the rulers, the chief priest, the Sanhedrin, they hear these murmurings. They hear that there's a lot of people that are starting to believe in Jesus. They're starting to believe he is the Christ. So they go to their police force. They take their guards, and they said, you go get him, and you bring him back. So they're setting it in order. They're going to arrest Jesus. So let's see what happens. This police force goes down to take him. Jesus therefore said, yet a little while I am with you, and I go unto him that sent me. Ye shall seek me, and shall not find me. Where I am, you cannot come. So now then he tells these Jews this. Now this is provoking their thoughts. Where is he going that we can't go? Where he's getting ready to go somewhere, and we can't go. What would you think of me if I told you tonight that I'm getting ready to go somewhere and none of you can go where I'm going? What would you think? Well, first of all, you know, wherever I go, you could go, right? And then you'd probably start saying, wonder what he means. What is he talking about? Because you know wherever I can go, you can also go. These Jews knew wherever Jesus could go, they could go. And yet he said, where I go, you can't go. And you'll seek me, and you can't find me. Now look what they came to in verse 35. The Jews therefore said among themselves, whither will this man go that we shall not find him? Will he go into the dispersion among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? What is this word that he said? You shall seek me, and shall not find me, and where I am you cannot come. Wonder what he's talking about. Could it be Could it be? He is getting ready to leave us Jews, the Jewish nation. And he's going into the dispersion. That is, he's going out into the Greek lands. He's going out and start preaching to the Romans and to the Greeks. He's going over to Corinth. He's going to go preach to the heathens. Of course, we Jews wouldn't go among those horrible people and live among them. So evidently he's going out in these places. Could that be what he's talking about? They just can't figure it out. What does it mean? Now on the last day, the great day of the feast, this is the last day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried. Now here's another challenge. Jesus stood and cried, saying, If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. He that believeth on me, as the Scripture has said, from within him shall flow rivers of living water. Doesn't that sound like what he said to the woman at the well? See? And what in the world is he talking about that is there? He also talked to the Jews in chapter 6. And remember, he's talking, instead of water, he's talking about food. And he said, you eat me, you eat me, and you will live forever. And then he cleared it all up. And they thought he was talking about physical, but when he explained what he's talking about, what you put in your body, you totally eat me, you digest me. What was it he said? It is the Spirit that giveth life. The words that I speak unto you are spirit and are life. So when he said, eat me, what's he talking about? He's talking about eating his words, eating his teaching. Eat everything I say. Totally digest me. Put all of my teachings. Put my mind in your mind. Transform your mind so that your thoughts are just exactly like my thoughts. That's what he's talking about, his word. Now, same thing he's going to be talking about here. Only he's talking about water. He's saying in here now, if you will believe in me, as the Scripture says, then from within him shall flow rivers of living water. Not just a river, but you're going to have so much living water, and that is clean, cool, drinkable, pure water, not cistern type water, that you're going to have it. But this he spake of the Spirit, which they that believed on him were to receive, for the Spirit was not yet given, because Jesus was not yet glorified. Now there he explains what Jesus means when he talks about these rivers of water that is within you. Now what are the rivers of water that boil up that is within you? It's the Spirit. It's the Spirit. Now the Spirit was not yet given. Jesus was not yet glorified. Now fast forward your mind forward. Jesus is going to die in 6 more months. He's going to raise from the dead. Then 50 days later, the day of Pentecost comes. And what's going to happen on the day of Pentecost? The Spirit is going to come. When the Spirit comes, what's the Spirit going to do? The Spirit is going to teach them everything they need to know. It's going to teach them that. When you get over to John the 16th chapter, in verse 12, he'll tell you a little bit more about it. He said, I have yet many things to say unto you, but you're not able to bear them now. See, before he died. He said, howbeit when he, the Spirit, is come, what will the Spirit do? He shall teach you all things. See? So they're telling us what he's talking about. He's talking in this figurative language to get their attention, so that they'll look up. What does he mean? He's getting their attention. Now in verse 40, some of the multitude, therefore, when they heard these words, said, this is of a truth the prophet. Others says, this is the Christ. Now, what's the difference in the prophet and the Christ? Well, the answer is nothing. But now, if you say, why did they have these two questions? the Jews thought there was a difference. When you say, what is the prophet? The prophet they were looking for is the prophet back in Deuteronomy 18:15. There's where God told Moses, he says, now, I'm going to raise up another prophet like unto you. And when I raise up this other prophet, to him shall you hearken, or you will listen to him. So God told Moses to tell the people, I'm going to raise up another prophet like Moses. That'll be a prophet who is a lawgiver. And when I raise up this other prophet, only going to be one. Isaiah wasn't, Daniel wasn't. They weren't lawgivers like Moses. Moses was the prophet and the lawgiver. Now I'm going to raise up one more prophet. And when I raise up this prophet, you listen to him. You leave Moses. You listen to him. So these Jews are saying this prophet is great. He was. Then you go over to the prophets, and the prophets prophesy about the Messiah or the Christ. When the Christ comes, he's going to do all these things. So the Jews had a concept, there's two great things coming. There's going to be the prophet who comes, and there's going to be the Christ who comes. Little did they know, it's the same person, see? So that's why some of them said, well, is this the prophet? Some said, well, is this the Christ? See? They were asking that because they didn't understand he's the same. But it said, some said, what then doth the Christ come out of Galilee? In other words, we know where this guy came from. Where was he born? Everybody knows. I mean, where did he come from? Not where was he born. Where did he come from? Nazareth. Nazareth of Galilee. That's where he came from. Is there supposed to be any prophet ever come out of Galilee? No. Now, there was a prophet. There was one prophet that we know of that came out of Galilee, and that was Jonah. Jonah lived up in Galilee, and God called him in there. But when you're looking for the Christ or a great prophet, they didn't come out of Galilee, see? And so that's what they're saying here. That it said, hath not the Scripture said that the Christ cometh out of the seed of David and from Bethlehem, the village where David was? Now they were right there, weren't they? See? Is the Christ, is any great prophet going to come out of Galilee? Doesn't the Bible say he will come from Bethlehem? Well, you're way ahead of him. Where was Jesus born? See, in Bethlehem, and went up to Galilee to live. So they were looking here for this. So in verse 43, so there arose a division in the multitude because of him, and some of them would have taken him, but no man laid hands on him. So now then the multitudes are in a big frenzy. They're arguing. Some of them saying, no, this is not the Christ because he comes from the wrong location. Others saying it is the Christ because of look at all the miracles that he does. Look at his teaching. It is the Christ. No, it's not the Christ because he comes from Galilee. So they're arguing back and forth. What's the rulers doing? They're sitting back there just as nervous as a cat, aren't they? We've got to get him. We've got to kill him. They already made up their mind. And you remember what they've done to the police a minute ago? They sent their police force out to bring him back. So they're supposed to go out and arrest Jesus and bring him to them. Now, what day of the feast is this? The last day of the feast. See? Okay, so the police force goes out, and in verse 45, the officers therefore came to the chief priests and Pharisees, and they said unto them, why did you not bring him? So they didn't bring Jesus in. Why didn't you do it? And the officers answered, never man so spake. Boy, that's worth thinking about. The police officers went out to get him. They were there. They heard him preach. They heard him make these statements. They didn't arrest him. They didn't arrest him. Came back, why didn't you? never man so spake. We've never heard anything like this man. Why were they afraid to take him? Could they think he might be the Christ? They've never heard anything like this. So it just may be. Then the rulers came back. Pharisees answered them, "Are you also led astray?" In other words, the police for you led astray? Hath any of the rulers believed on him, or of the Pharisees? Stop to think. Look at us rulers. Have any of us rulers believed in him, or is it just a bunch of the dumb Jews that are out there? They're the only ones that believe that he might be the Christ. Stop and think about it. Have any of us done that? And then take the multitudes, those dumb Jews, in verse 49. But this multitude that knoweth not the law are accursed. This bunch of ignorant people, multitudes, they don't know anything about the law, and they are a condemned group of people. Did the Jews think highly of their fellow man? See? And said, just stop to think. Those stupid Jews, the only ones that believe in him. You don't see us rulers believing in him, that's in here. And those people are accursed. Now, an interesting thing. Nicodemus saith unto them, he that came to him before, being one of them. You remember Nicodemus back in chapter 3? Who was a ruler, came to him and talked to him about being born again. Nicodemus spoke up and said, doth our law judge a man, except it first hear from him and know what he doeth? He said, stop to think. Does our law, the law of Moses, does it permit us to judge a man, condemn a man, unless we hear from him, unless we get his testimony, unless we know what he's doing? Is that a legitimate question? You bet your life it's a legitimate question. Here's their answer. They answered and said unto him, art thou also of Galilee? Search and see that out of Galilee ariseth no prophet. So they bite his head off. Are you also from Galilee? Is that what you're trying to do? Get your Galilean buddy in here? Do you think tempers might be raging at this time? Things might be getting pretty hot, you see, that's down there. The feast is over, and they don't get him. That's where we'll start next week in chapter 8. And if it's not hot enough tonight, come back next week because it'll get hotter. Yeah.
Did the Pharisees and the Sadducees take on all this power on their own? Or I couldn't find where it was coming from God.
Okay. The question is, did the Pharisees and Sadducees, did they take this power on themselves, or did it come from God? The answer is, they took it on themselves. They took it on themselves. You look at our government today. Has our government taken upon itself any powers that were not given to it and has not been given to it by the Constitution? You see, it just constantly creeps in. Now, back during that 400-year period of time between Malachi and the coming of Jesus, these two groups, they were religious, political groups. They rose up. And so you've got two powerful political groups, Sadducees and Pharisees, that is there. And they're the ones that have assumed this power, and they've taken it over, and they are the rulers at this time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shouldn't have been that way, but it is. Mm-hmm. Okay. See you next week.